Janice Ott was abducted and killed by Bundy. She was only 23 years old and worked as a case officer for the King County Youth Service in Seattle. She was educated in psychology of antisocial personality disorder, and it was believed by her that her kind spirit and education could actually help others who needed special guidance to change for the better. Thank you. And ironically, I feel that maybe if Bundy had gone there earlier, this all wouldn't have happened. So ironically, Bundy attacked one of the people who could have honestly helped him. She was newlywed and was separated from her husband from a job, a bold move for a woman at the time that many women were starting to take during the feminist movement of the 1970s. Like many other Bundy's victims, she was abused for her kindness. Witnesses say a man in a cast needed help and Janice offered. That was the last time she was seen alive by anyone other than Bundy. He confessed to her murder and her body was found in a wooded area where the other victims had been discarded. July 14th, 18-year-old Denise Nosland was studying to be a computer programmer. She worked part-time in an office to pay her way through night school. She and her boyfriend had planned a picnic that day for 9 months with another couple and her dog. They roasted hot dogs, and when the men fell asleep, she went to use the bathroom. At around 4:30 p.m. Her friends looked for her after a while and thought maybe she was just with her dog, but the dog turned up alone. She never returned. Bundy confessed to killing her. Her body was found with the other victims. Bundy then moved to Utah, Colorado for college, and so did his killings. October 1974, Bundy kidnapped and assaulted Rhonda Shapley, but she escaped by jumping into a river while his back was turned. She kept her silence about it until 2011 and went on Dr. Phil to talk about it. She didn't want people to ridicule her or treat her different or just to be known and she said she wanted to put it all behind her. 1 week later, Melissa Ann Smith, 17 years old, vanished. The daughter of a police chief, Smith disappeared after meeting a friend at a pizza parlor. She planned to walk home, pick up some clothes, and then head to a friend's house for a slumber party, but she never made it home. Her body was found 9 days later in Summit Park in the mountains east of Salt Lake City. She had been severely assaulted and raped. On Halloween, Bundy struck again. 17-year-old Laura Ann Aim disappeared the night of October 31st after leaving a cafe. Her family didn't realize she was missing for another few days. Hikers found her frozen body in the mountains about a month later. She was, like many other girls, insecure, a drifter looking for something to grasp in life and working part-time jobs while living with friends. She talked to her parents who loved her very much daily. On November 8th, 1974, it would prove to be crucial for the eventual capture and conviction of Bundy. He was posing as a police officer named Rosalind, and I wonder if maybe that had been a reference to, Shakespeare made a thing called A Midsummer's Night's Dream, He made a play called A Midsummer's Night's Dream, where a woman named Rosalind is hiding in the woods and disguises herself as a man to survive because she is a banished or exiled princess. Bundy approached Carol Durant at the Fashion Palace Mall in Murray, Utah. He told the 18-year-old girl her car was broken into and she needed to go to the police station. She trusted his story, and she willingly got into his car, but she quickly noticed something was off. He didn't drive towards the police station, and then his friendly demeanor quickly shifted into a cold one. "Hey, Wolf." When she asked him what he was doing, he didn't answer. Although he managed to force her wrist into a pair of handcuffs and threatened her with a gun, she broke out of the car and ran for her life. She found refuge with a couple driving nearby, who brought the distraught ranch to a police station. She couldn't find Rosalind's face in any of their books or mugshots. Eventually, I believe a key was actually dropped in the parking lot, and it fit the handcuffs, so it would later on also be used as physical evidence. A few hours later, Bundy approached 17-year-old Debbie Kent after a performance of a high school play in beautiful Utah. She had been there with her brothers this time, and he succeeded in abducting and murdering the young woman. Several people from her school confessed to hearing her screams. Now, Debbie Kent's parents refused to turn the light off of her home, refused to turn the porch light off of their home ever since she disappeared. They said in an interview in 2000, "We always left the porch light on when they went out at night, and the last one home always turned it off. I will never turn it off. As long as I'm here, I will never turn it off." So, obviously this girl was very much loved by her family, who keep her memory alive. On January 12th, 1976, Carol Campbell, a 23-year-old registered nurse, was with her fiancé and his 2 children which she got along well with. While they were in the Wildwood Inn's lounge together, Carolyn remembered a magazine she forgot in her room and went to go get it. She never returned because she was also murdered, undressed, and likely assaulted by Bundy. Something to keep in mind about Bundy was sometimes someone being dead didn't really matter to him. He was also a necrophiliac. Or necrophile, sorry. On March 15th, 1974, Julie Cunningham, a 26-year-old woman who worked part-time in a sporting goods store and as a ski instructor, talked to her mother for the last time on the phone. She was known as a very kind and very beautiful lady. She'd recently suffered her last heartbreak and was going to meet up with her roommate, but she never did. Ted admitted to murdering her. Her body has never been found. One of Bundy's youngest victims, Culver, was just 12 years old when Bundy abducted her in Portobello, Idaho, May 6. He spotted her earlier that day on the playing field in Almadid Junior High. He raped her, murdered her in a hotel bathtub, and threw her into a river. Her body has never been recovered. Another one of Bundy's youngest victims, Lion Cover, was just 12 years old. Oh, sorry. Yeah, same thing. Her name was Lynette. Sorry. I put that down twice. On April 15th, Melanie Cooley, an 18-year-old high school student, walked off from school that day and was never seen again. Road workers found the poor girl's body 20 miles away. She had been bludgeoned to death in the back of the head. Her hands had been tied and a dirty pillowcase had been left twisted around her neck. No information was really available on her. I tried to find out what anyone had said about her. Yeah, there were a lot. I mean, the youngest confirmed victim was 12 years old, I believe, but the youngest suspected was about 8, so. No information, and it is only suspected that Bundy also killed her, but it is still not, he did not totally confirm it, so. In June 1975, 15-year-old Susan Curtis was killed by Bundy while attending a Mormon youth contest. She and Debbie Kent actually lived in the same neighborhood. I was also not able to find a whole lot on her. On July 1st, 1975, Shelley Robinson, a 24-year-old woman, was picked up by Bundy. She had a habit of hitchhiking for fun to other states, which is why when she went missing for a few days, her friends and boyfriend that she had gotten into an argument with a little bit prior didn't really worry too much. She was last seen by a police officer at a gas station with a man in an old pickup truck. Her body was found inside a mine by 2 students. It is only suspected that Bundy killed her. Now we're going to move on to the victims in Florida. In 1975, law enforcement finally caught up to Bundy. Police discovered masks, handcuffs, and blunt weapons in Bundy's car during a routine traffic stop. Suspicious but lacking evidence, they picked him under surveillance. They tracked down his Volkswagen, which he had sold to a teenage boy, and found physical evidence of him tying him to several of the missing women. Then his escaped victim, Carol DeRanch, identified him for a police lineup on October 2nd. He had attempted to abduct her by posing as a cop, but he, as we talked before, she was the girl who escaped his car. Bundy said he wanted to act as his own lawyer, which meant he had access to the courthouse library and could move in said library without handcuffs and chains. Because keep in mind, he went to law school, While hiding behind a library bookcase, Bundy, who was convicted of the D Ranch kidnapping and sentenced in June 1976, escaped a year later by jumping out of the same courthouse, the second-story courthouse window. He was recaptured 6 days later after attempting to live in the wilderness, but failing by almost dying of starvation and cold weather. Then escaped prison again by cutting a hole through the ceiling on December 30th, 1977. Now, this took him several months to escape again, or a while, because he had to lose weight to fit in that tiny hole. He calculated this. He had gotten a map of the prison system. He had to lose weight, which wasn't no one really cared about him losing weight. He did. He hurt his ankle badly. I don't know the exact details of his injury, but he injured himself, badly. I mean, not severely, but, he was that's one of the reasons that he wasn't exactly much of a runner, because, it's kind of hard to jump out a 2-story window and end up undamaged, really. What was I going to say next? Okay. So he escaped, and now nobody really cared that he'd been losing weight because it was just prisoners are in jail, what are they going to do? Bundy proceeded to use stolen credit cards to survive and hopped around from Colorado to Chicago and to Michigan, to Atlanta and ultimately to Florida, where his gruesome crimes would continue. Once in Florida, Bundy committed his most violent crime yet. He had this, urge to kill that just would not leave, as we can see. Even when he was okay, I've escaped, I should just, live quietly, he still had this urge to kill. So he broke into a Florida State University sorority house where several young students slept it was the very early hours of the morning on January 14th and 15th, and in less than 15 minutes, he committed his most violent acts and turned their house into a living hell. He snuck into the bedroom of Karen Chandler, 21, and Kathy Kleiner. I'm sorry for butchering names. Like I said, I had to learn most of this through reading it, so... He brutally attacked both of them. Kathy was 20, by the way. He brutally attacked both of them, but they did survive. One house member said they saw Ted and reported that there was an intruder. Karen staggered into the hall with blood streaming down her face, and Kathy claimed she doesn't remember anything because she was asleep when the attack happened. Kleiner is now a married woman with children, has gone on to do interviews saying the experience made her stronger, and she refuses to be defined as the woman that survived a serial killer. He snuck into the bedroom of 21-year-old Margaret Bowman and bludgeoned her to death with a piece of firewood. He then proceeded into the room of Lisa Levy, 20 years old, beat her, strangled her, tore off one of her nipples, and bit into her left buttock and raped her with a bottle of hairspray. Now, keep in mind, the bite mark is going to be significant later on. Lisa was a hard worker. In fact, she had actually left the disco that she had been at early because she had been at work and was really exhausted. She was described as very cheerful and outgoing. Margaret came from a family of wealth. She had just been on a date that she was anxious to tell her sorority sisters about. The coroner's opinion was that the girls had been knocked unconscious from the blows themselves before their deaths. I will actually get into that too, because there was a case about that involving his girlfriend. We'll talk about his girlfriend, something similar happened. There is actually a movie, it's not 100% accurate, but there was a movie I watched yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, The Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, which is basically supposed to be kind of if you are his girl, or it's sort of the perspective of his girlfriend. If you don't know anything about Bundy, you may not know whether or not he actually did it, because it doesn't confirm it till the very end that he did it. But it's basically supposed to be about, imagine this person who you love, or loved at one point, and finding out that they possibly committed all these atrocities. Okay, thank you so much, thank you. Alright. Now, Cheryl Thomas was a dance student. She had been walking home at 1:30 a.m. after having tea at her date's place. Cheryl's neighbors heard the sound of a hammer and her moaning. Now, this is the part you mentioned before about, hey, Redneck, someone could hear this. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everyone, please follow Stubble, he is awesome. I met him through another person who's really cool, who's not here today, unfortunately. She's not here, she wanted to see it, but hopefully she'll catch this by the end. Hopefully, I don't know. Anyway, Cheryl's neighbors heard the sound of a hammer and her moaning. They called her room until the phone rang 5 times, and a security measure they did. When there was no one, they screamed, "Call the police now!" They screamed, "Call the police now!" They heard someone running through her kitchen, and several police cars arrived within minutes to find her face severely bruised and laying diagonally. She, like many other survivors, suffered permanent injuries. Her case also included hearing loss in her left ear. She was in a hospital for a month, and unfortunately her dance career was ended. However, she did survive. With the police on his tail, Ted Bundy killed one last time, murdering 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. Bundy kidnapped Leach around her school in Lake City, Florida on February 9th, 1978. The poor girl was going to meet a friend and head to class together. 2 months later, her body was found 35 miles away in Swanee River State Park. She was very excited the day that she disappeared. She had been elected first runner-up to the Valentine Queen at her junior high, February 9th. February 9th was a rainy, windy day in Salt Lake City. When she arrived in PE class, she remembered leaving her purse in her homeroom class. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Her teacher let her run off to get it. This meant dodging from one building to another, and Kim's friend went with her. So as they went back to PE, her friend remembered something that she had to go to retrieve. And then Murderpedia, which is also part of where I got this first, the part about Kim and her friend was Kim kept going. They say, quote unquote, Kim kept going, and when her